and welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, one of your hosts, and with me is Carla Moore, your other host. And on this beautiful day, we're just going to have a conversation with each other as we do every week, hoping to give you some reasons to remember to look up, see God, see all the goodness, and know that no matter what, God is in control. Carla, you're not even home this week. You're in Tennessee at PTP. How's it been going?
It's been great. Always get my cup filled. And, their slogan is renew and refresh and recharge. And it always does that for me. I think a lot of it, of course, is what we hear, the lessons that we get to hear. But for me, it's just seeing people that this is the only time of year that we get to see each other and the fellowship and just, I don't know, it's just, there's something about it that just fills my cup. And I think it does for a lot of other people too. So it's been good.
How many people are there this year?
I haven't heard them say. I know Jeff Archie said that they were going to break a record, but so it would be over 5,000. I just don't know the exact number. I don't think they know until the very end, and usually the last day they'll announce what the total number was. So we have missed you, definitely missed you, Neil. Lots of people asking, and but good things have been going on at your house.
Yes,
tell us about.
We didn't go to PTP because that was Janelle's due date. It was smack dab in the middle of PTP. And sure enough, on August 20th, she gave birth to our beautiful new grandson, Jude Mitchell, and he is absolute perfection. So many times already in just the 2 or 3 days that he's been in this world, I have thought, I wish I had a better vocabulary. I wish I had better words to describe what it's like to hold him, to see Dale's face as a brand new father holding him. The night she gave birth, Janelle was smiling, cracking up, she did not look like I even said to her, did you just give birth? She was just sitting up and smiling and looked great. But they got to go home yesterday from the hospital, and so our hearts are just so full.
That picture that you have of Dale holding him nose to nose, that just brought tears to my eyes.
Mine too.
Mine too. Such a sweet picture.
Janelle's mom, Sherry, was in the room, of course, during the actual delivery, and she said that Dale was so emotional and just started crying, and he was even shaking. He was so emotional, and and just to hear him talk, just this burst of love for this child and protectiveness, and we remember what that was like, and to see your children experience that and go through that, there's just nothing like it.
It made me cry again.
It's truly, our hearts are so full. I can't even express just the goodness of it all. It's a good week. We had everybody in that hospital room after worship that first night. He was born on a Sunday, which is wonderful. And, Carl and Emily are in there with Rich, who all of a sudden looks gigantic.
Yeah.
He's only 7 months old, and he's even kind of small for his age, but next to teeny tiny little Jude, he just looks huge now. But I was just looking around the room at everybody and thinking, this is what it's all about.
Do you remember the moments right after you gave birth and what you thought and what you were thinking and feeling, or is it a blur to you?
No, I remember being in awe. I also remember being intimidated, that they just look so tiny and fragile. And I'm thinking, this child has been put into our care. Right. This soul has been put into our care, and I love what Dale, he shared when he shared his pictures. He said something about this beautiful gift from God and doing their best to return him safely back home. It just,
he said, God let him have a high rent model or a high end model or something like that. I thought that's so cute.
Yeah. So
I remember the feeling. My first two the deliveries were a little bit more rocky, not anything dangerous, but it was a little different. And then when Micah was born, I was induced a little bit early because I won't even go into all that, but I was induced a little bit early. And so I remember all of the birth process, and it was a little bit easier. But I just remember after he was born and thinking just this this little person, an individual, a person, a soul that you can hold in both hands, how warm he was and how just fresh from God, and just the awe and the amazement. And that was as a parent, and as a grandparent, obviously as a parent, it's stronger and just all encompassing and all inspiring. And like you said, you don't even have the vocabulary for it, but to watch your children become parents, there's just no words for it.
No, and I just keep finding myself, we've been able to see them several times, and even last night I got to hold them for over an hour, and I'm just trying to, how can I impress every bit of this on my heart forever? Every smell of that sweet little baby and that downy, soft feel of his teeny tiny little round head. How can I just remember this forever and ever, and it's amazing.
I remember unwrapping Jacob when he was, that night. So he was born, I think, on a Monday, and like mid-afternoon, but that evening when everyone had gone home, and it was just John and I, and I guess Grady and Janice, John's parents, had Jordan at home, but we took Jacob and just unwrapped the blankets, took his little hat off, and just his little feet, just examine every little toe and every little spot on him, and you just fall in love, and just so grateful for that. And you just see God's hand in that. You see how he feels about us. There's just so much about being a parent that teaches you about God. So happy for y'all. And that's
thank you.
He's adorable. How much did he weigh?
He was 8 pounds, 2 ounces.
He's a little chunky then. And how long?
22 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you have 2 little boys with the middle name Mitchell. Rich Mitchell and Jude Mitchell. That'll be something that bonds them. And
one of the boys, or somebody figured out that so Rich and Jude are 7 months apart, and then Jude and Emily's next child will also be 7 months apart.
Yeah.
So between all the grandchildren, 7 months, and Jude will be smack dab in the middle.
Yeah. So we need to talk about that for a second, because just this week, Carl and Emily announced publicly that they're expecting again.
Oh, that's right. So I haven't been able to share that on the podcast yet. Okay. Yeah. So yes, more good news. Carl and Emily are expecting their second child. She said, I think that she was about 9 weeks along. And so we went from 0 grandchildren to 3 grandchildren in what seems like no time at all.
Yeah. And that day that they interrupted our podcast.
Yes. Oh, yes.
They were coming in to tell you.
When they walked in, they just walked in the door, and I had said, I'm recording. I was kind of suspicious because when I turned around as they were leaving, Carl did that hand motion of call me. And he said, we have something to tell you. And so for the rest of the podcast, while we're recording, I'm thinking, oh, are they pregnant again? No.
Yeah.
But what does he have to tell me? And sure enough, we found out right after.
Yeah.
I called him and found out that that's what they were going to tell me, that they were expecting again. So.
Well, I was very impressed, because you told me after the podcast, you told me what he had said. And I thought, I couldn't tell any distraction on your part, because I think I would have been like with my mouth hanging open, and I'd say, okay, we've got to cut this off because I need to call.
That's right. Well, that's it for today.
Yeah. Nice talking to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good news. Yeah. Three game babies.
You spoke last night at PTP? How'd it go?
I think it went okay. It was not an easy topic.
What was it?
My assignment last night was, the title of it was Breaking the Grip of Depression and Defeat.
Ooh.
Yeah. So you just can stand up and say, well, I don't think you can. But I mean, obviously, I tried to make the distinction between true clinical depression and, just feeling depressed. And I talked to the people, or the way I approached it was the people who are feeling depressed, because people who have clinical depression, they really need professional help. And I'm not qualified to deal with that. They need to have, some medical things checked out and and look for imbalances. And I mean, true clinical depression it's a long-term, it's classified as a mental disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of thing really needs professional help. And, but depression and feeling depressed, in that sense, we all deal with some of that. So I tried to address it from a biblical standpoint and talk about, I used 3 different passages just to kind of see if what we can do. Really, my feelings a lot of times, as we've talked about before, are pretty no nonsense, and how we have to keep going. We have to do what we have to do. And I know sometimes things feel really overwhelming, and we do need to take some time and feel it,
Mm-hmm.
soak it in, whatever, but then we have to keep going. So anyway, I'm glad it's over with, because I can enjoy the rest of PTP, which is almost over. But
How many times did you speak?
Twice.
What was your other one?
The other one I shared with Renita Archie, and we talked about part of the parable of the sower, and she talked about the cares of the world, and I talked about the deceitfulness of riches and how those can both be obstacles to heaven. So yeah.
So
yours.
would you be able to share links to that in our group, or is that something where somebody has to get it just from the PTP 365 or whatever they call that?
I think you have to be a member of the PTP 365 to be able to get a link to the lesson.
Okay. So, but if listeners want to do that, they can look that up. There's lots of good lessons and things that you can listen to.
I think they have some free that you can listen to, or maybe they did that just during the pandemic. I can't remember. But it's worthwhile, because when they hand out the thumb drive tomorrow, it'll have, I don't know how many hours of teaching on it, but you can also access it online, but you have to pay for a subscription, and I don't know the details. We'll link that next week.
Okay. Well, good job. Proud of you.
Thanks.
Proud of you.
Thanks,
and
Mom.
you manned a booth with looking up stuff on it while you were there in
the I didn't really man
exhibit hall. You womaned it.
I didn't woman it either.
Oh.
I set it up and walked away.
Oh.
And I went and refilled the stickers every once in a while. So I think actually all of the stickers are gone, and all of the magnets are gone, which is good, because that's what we got them for, is to share them.
Yeah.
Good. So but the poster, I just, when I set it up, I thought it looked so white. It just needs some extra decoration. So I asked everyone to sign it when they went by.
That's great.
And I haven't seen it since today's Wednesday. I haven't seen it since Monday. So it'll be fun to look over it and see who all signed it. Anyway,
and you put a little sneaky sneak on it.
I did.
Did anybody comment about that?
Well, I had to tell everybody to look. I was really surprised that nobody spotted it right away, because the one back from Freed Hardeman days, back in February, had the word fat on it. And we've already talked about that and how that happened. Because
that was accidental.
Yeah, but this one was not. So instead of fat, but skinny this time.
I love your sense of humor.
Yeah, it was kind of silly. But anyway, I wanted to share this sweet thing that Leslie Hamby gave me. I had never met her before this week, but she's a listener. And she brought me some jam. If you're watching, you can see. And these sweet little bookmarks.
Well, that's nice.
And just the sweetest card that she brought me, and she thanked us both for the podcast, and it was just a sweet gift. And John is especially going to enjoy that jam if I let him have it.
So. What kind is it?
It's apple. I think she said it was apple cinnamon. I haven't opened it yet because I want to be able to take it home. So yeah, good stuff.
Different. Yeah. Well, how nice. That's sweet.
Yeah, it was very nice.
So you probably haven't done much thrifting since the last time we talked, because you've been traveling.
Right. We recorded last week on
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Right.
You left Thursday.
Yeah. So no.
Yeah.
In fact, someone I ran into yesterday here at PTP, she laughed. It was someone actually that worships, I think, where Emily goes. And she said she saw a Goodwill and thought about stopping, but she said, Carla's here. She's probably already cleaned them out. I said, I haven't even been. I haven't had time to do anything other than be at PTP, which is what I want to be doing while I'm here.
Yeah, it's a busy week, but it's a good week.
Yeah. And we're staying off site sort of. It's just down the hill, where the convention center is up on the hill. And Brad and Glenda Winery were so
Oh,
sweet too. They provided us with a room. It's a timeshare that I think I'm saying this right, was Brad's father's, and he passed away. And so I think they still had some points. And I may be saying that wrong. I'm not sure. I'll find out from Glenda, but you stayed with Brad and Glenda
they're
not
so
too long
sweet.
ago. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. Yeah. So they provided us with this place because last year at PTP we hosted a Bear Valley kind of an alumni and friends reception type thing
Hmm.
out on the back patio of the convention center. And I think it rained that day. And I mean, there
Oh.
was some different things that it just wasn't optimum. You can't bring food inside the convention center. And I
Mhm.
think they've even cracked down more on that now. But anyway, they said, y'all need to be able to have a place where you can host this in a better way. And so we're in this very, very, very nice suite that had 2 bedrooms, and Jordan and Aaron stayed. They went home today, but they stayed with us most of the time. And so on Monday night, we had probably 60 people in here
Wow,
that
that's a
were
great
just,
turnout.
yeah, it
I saw
was.
some
So
pictures.
some
Mhm.
Bear Valley alumni and uh, some current people, and we went around the room and talked about where everybody was from and what they were doing now. And so you would have enjoyed it because lots of people that
Mhm.
were here. So it was good.
Fun.
We
That's so
enjoyed it.
sweet of them.
Yeah, it really is. And not surprising because they do sweet things all the time. I just
Mhm.
realized I didn't set a timer, so
Oh.
don't know what time we started. Starting it now.
Okay. Well, I
Should
want to give a little birthday shout out to my sister.
okay.
She has a special number birthday coming up on
Oh,
the
she's gonna be
25th.
30.
Yes, that's right. She'll be 30.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time this airs on Monday, it will have passed, but it hasn't yet. So happy birthday to my wonderful sister. And love you so much if you're listening. I think
Yeah.
she does listen.
Is she here still? Do you
Yes.
know?
Yeah, they
Well, I
said
knew
they were. What day is it? Yeah, because they're
this
heading
is
on
Wednesday.
Thursday. So she's still there. Hmm.
Well, I'm gonna have to track her down because she apparently went by the booth, but I wasn't. I mean, I haven't stayed at the booth at all. I've just kind of gone back and forth, but I'd like
Hmm.
to see her.
Yeah, I told her, I said, when you see Carla, give her a high five for me.
High five. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to share before we head on into our
Well, I have
topic
one
of
little
the day?
thing, but I'm
Hmm.
gonna wait until we start the topic because it goes along with the topic.
Ah, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, some of the things that we already mentioned in our chit chat will kind of segue into this, but
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to talk about seeing the beauty in the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to sometimes focus on all of the hard things, especially since I feel like it comes in from all different directions, whether it's the news or social media or whatever. We're always aware of horrible things that are happening or shifts in our government or the political climate. It might be moral decline, that we see all around us that can be frustrating or discouraging. Maybe closer to home, it could be some challenges that we're facing, or pain that we're experiencing, or a difficulty or a disappointment. But sometimes it's just easy to realize how hard this life can be sometimes. It
Mm-hmm.
just is. It's filled with trials and difficulties and setbacks. And we know that, and living through it, we're just so aware of it. And so we thought it would be good to have a conversation where we can see that even in the middle of all of that, there is so much beauty to be seen. And maybe it's good every now and then to just to remind ourselves to open our eyes and see them. And
Mm-hmm.
and not in any way to browbeat us as we are going through difficult times or experiencing hard things, but more of a way of encouragement. Reasons to smile, reasons to thank God. And sometimes we may be going through difficult things and we don't know the answer for them yet or the whys, but it's good to be reminded God's goodness is everywhere and always will be. And periods of darkness will not last forever,
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought we could just talk about some of the things that we know that is still there, that's beautiful, even in the ordinary day to day life, things that don't rely on a purchase, or an experience, something that you have to look forward to outside of heaven. I mean, something that has to happen, nothing like that, just things that are because of God and who he is and the goodness that he blesses us with every single day. And we've mentioned this on here before, but before we hit record on this podcast, one of us will pray. We take turns each week. And in your prayer, I wanted to share what you said with the listeners, because you had mentioned something about how easy it is to be distracted, that sometimes we don't see the beauty of our days because we're distracted, and maybe, things get busy and we're overwhelmed. But you followed that up with, I wrote it down, sometimes the devil works through distractions. And I just thought that was so good. I really appreciated that and wanted to share it with our listeners as we jump into this too, because it's not that we're trying to intentionally turn the blind eye to the beauty all around us that comes from God, but sometimes we are. We're just busy, we're distracted, we're overwhelmed, whatever it might be. So we thought it would be fun to share some of these things, and they're not, like I said, they're just little small ordinary things, and we've kind of broken them down under a few different categories that we thought we would just chat about and share with you. And at the end of this, for our listeners, we would love to hear some of yours, because honestly, probably each of us only had a few minutes to spend on this, thinking about what we might share. And I know how easy would it be, Carla, if we had more time to just talk for hours about, because even as we're getting started, I'm thinking, I didn't even mention this or this or this. So I think it would be fun for our listeners to chime in on the Facebook page, looking at with Kathy and Carla, the beauty that you see in the ordinary. Maybe just go into this new week. This airs on a Monday. Go into this new week with intention and keeping our eyes open. And what are you seeing that you can share with the rest of us? We would love that. So the first thing is a beauty in the ordinary is having something to nurture. Just the act of nurturing something. And, the first thing that comes to my mind, of course, is I think of babies and children. I've got babies on the brain right now, and how sweet it is to be able to nurture and take care of a child, even though at times that can be exhausting or tiring and bring its own challenges. It's still a beautiful thing. But even if it's not children, there are so many things that we can bring into our life that we can nurture. And a garden, plants, watering and tending plants is a beautiful act. Or pets, feeding and loving on and taking care of pets. That's just something that's sweet and fulfilling. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, when we were talking earlier before we hit record, and we're kind of trying to categorize, and like you said, both of us didn't have a whole lot of time to think about it. But when I think about, there was a post that we put in the Looking Up group several weeks ago, maybe even a couple of months ago. And I just put designed a little thing that said, tell us something good that happened today. And that was probably our most, well responded post that we've ever done on there. We had 150 to 200 people that chimed in and told us something good that happened to them that day, or something that was beautiful in their life at that time. And I think we should do that on a weekly basis. And I know we don't want it to become routine. We want it, although it's good for it to be routine, and in a way to be able to point out and see all of the beauty that's going on around us. This is what I was going to show you. And if you're not watching, you can't see it, but I'll post it. Chantel Swain had a booth here at PTP, and she hand painted. This is not paint. This is probably some type of crayon or color or something. But if you see in the top, it says beauty is everywhere. Perfect. And it is. I mean, beauty is everywhere. And so nurturing, there is something about nurturing babies, and we both have grandbabies, and there's just something about those sweet and innocent and perfect and pure little people that you just want to gather them up to you and hold them and smell them and it's beautiful. But the thing that I guess I categorized, one of the things that I wrote down was our relationships with God's people, and not necessarily just God's people, all people of the world. All people are created by God. So in that sense, they are God's people. But I was just thinking about the beauty that I have seen this week, which I think I mentioned is probably my favorite part of polishing the pulpit, is seeing all of the people that we only get to see maybe once a year. And to me, polishing the pulpit it's like summer Bible camp for adults, because it's a week long, a little bit longer than a week, but people come from all over. There's people from other nations here that are missionaries in other nations, and they've come here. But when you walk in, and you can't go 2 steps without seeing someone else, and getting a hug, and someone you haven't seen since last year, and maybe hard things have happened in this past year that we haven't seen each other, and so the greetings and the hugs and the feeling of reunion, and just sitting down and sharing struggles, knowing that there are lots of listening ears that will hear what's going on in your life, and you can be a listening ear yourself, and the comfort that comes from them, and just having the like-minded feeling all around you. It's like a big bubble. And so I just feel like that's what I want to nurture, are these relationships with God's people, because I feel like it's a taste of what heaven's going to be like. And I love that.
I'm glad you explained about polishing the pulpit, because we mentioned that in the beginning and probably just called it PTP, which stands for polishing the pulpit. And we might have some people listening in that have no idea what that is. So I'm glad you take the time to explain that. And the name kind of makes it sound like, with pulpit in the name, it kind of makes it sound like it's just for preachers, but it's not. It's for everybody, all ages.
And it started out just for preachers, didn't it?
Years and years ago, but it's just grown into this. I like the way you put it. It's like a Bible camp for adults. And so I'm glad you took the time to explain that. But nurturing relationships, that's a good one.
Yeah, love it.
I was thinking with the nurturing children, pets, plants, whatever it is, it's, I think about, in those instances, it's somebody that's dependent on us. And there's a responsibility there, but taking that responsibility and, enjoying the fulfillment of it. And it's, that's a beautiful thing. And it kind of unfolds itself in various ways, especially when you're talking about a child. How old are they? What kind of commitment that calls for is going to look different. It's going to grow different and change through the years. But no matter where you fall in that, there's always beauty there. And it's definitely a gift from God. So
I think nurturing your marriage is another thing that we, because when you think about it, we're wanting to grow it and wanting it to become more and more healthy. And that's what I think of when I hear the word nurture, is that you're kind of babying something and trying to help it to grow and to love on it. Isn't that what you think of when you think of nurture?
I do. And with marriage, again, there can be hard times and challenges, but the daily act of nurturing it is beautiful and brings about beautiful things.
Yeah.
When we do that, it's only when we neglect it or don't see it that it gets harder. Good. That's good. Yeah. I wanted to mention in the beginning and forgot, James 1:17, every good and perfect gift comes from above, from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. I probably butchered that all over the place, but just the idea that all of these things are there, and as Christians we enjoy them and so much more, but even non-Christians do. Because we also read that he causes the rain to fall on the just and the unjust. And there's a lot of good things and beautiful things that even non-Christians can look around and see. But I just kind of wanted to point out that verse and completely forgot.
There was another one that I thought of too, that because I don't know why, for a long time I felt like, maybe because of the passage, it says you love not the world nor the things of the world. If any man doesn't love the Father, then talk about butchering. I butchered that, but then when you think about all of the things that are beautiful in this world, then you really understand that God does want us to enjoy this life. And He created, and I'm sure you'll bring up some of these things later, but all of the colors and the scents and the flavors, that's my favorite, the flavors that He created, and the relationships and the joy that we have in one another. And so, I mean, He really does want us to enjoy life. In fact, I think of Psalm 34:12, and it's quoted in 1 Peter 3, but who is the man who desires life and loves length of days that he may seek good? And then he goes on to say, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit, depart from evil and do good, seek peace and pursue it. But, God talks about us loving life and seeing good days. And so that's kind of what came to mind when you brought this episode up and this suggestion. So we do love life and the beauty that we see in it.
And I just hope that training ourselves to be more aware of it and to look for it and see it will lead us down a road of gratitude and living life with more gratitude for all the good that God has put all around us every day, even in the ordinary. And I'm glad you mentioned the things you did, because that's the perfect lead in for the second one, the beauty in the ordinary of variety. And there are so many different things that we enjoy variety in every single day. And you mentioned colors already. And Janelle was here yesterday. I don't even know what we were talking about. We definitely weren't talking about this podcast yet. I did bring it up later after she said it, but she started talking about color all around us and made the comment, doesn't that just show us how good God is? Because He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to give us all these beautiful colors, and He could have made everything plain, black and white. But instead, we have this huge rainbow of colors in everything and all of life. And I just thought, perfect timing. Thank you for sharing that. So I can mention it on the podcast. But with variety, I thought of with color, the changing seasons, you already mentioned that. Or did you mention that when we were talking before we hit record?
When we were talking before, but
whoops.
Yeah. No.
Changing seasons.
Yeah.
And how just not just the colors of the changing season, but the variety of the season itself. Because I always think when we get to a certain season, this is with the exception of winter. I always think this is my favorite season. Think about coming into fall and the smells, the leaves and their colors, and the cozy factor that ups when you enter into fall, and the fires and the football game, everything about fall is just lovely. And, and then you kind of get to where you're kind of done. Well, fall is kind of like a short season, but it seems like with every season, I love summer. You've got the gardening and the warm weather. You and I both enjoy warm weather, and the ocean and, being outside in short sleeves. And it seems like by about the time summer is ending, you're ready for it too. And then you get to go into a brand new season with change. And God didn't have to do that. He gives us all these beautiful seasons to enjoy and the variety of them. And we enjoy it while it's here. And then we're ready for the next one. And then we enjoy it while it's here. And then we're ready for the next one.
And it's just long enough, except summer in Texas is a little too long, maybe. But still, I mean, it's a good warning. You don't want to spend eternity in heat like that. So
I would argue that there were times in Colorado in winter, when it was my birthday in May and we were still getting snow. I thought, okay, enough's enough.
And it snowed, I guess, last year for the graduation banquet in May. And we had flown to be there, and I didn't have any. It's in May. After Mother's Day. I know this is a side note, but after Mother's Day in Texas, it's blazing hot. So when I pack my stuff, thinking May, snow doesn't even enter my brain. And we got there and there were several inches of snow. It's just not right.
No, I agree. I don't miss that. I thought about variety in food.
Of course.
You mentioned taste. And just think about the fact that, and we don't have to do this, but we can, a different breakfast every day if you want to, or you could have cottage cheese every day like you do.
I don't anymore. I've
Um,
changed.
you've changed already? You've changed.
Well, I needed to change.
We can come up with different dinners. We can try different types of foods, light and refreshing or rich and hearty soups and breads. It's just that's interesting. It keeps
Hmm.
life, and not everybody in all parts of the world has that luxury, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that.
Hmm.
Um, but there's variety there, and God didn't have to do that. That's just
Yeah.
like an ordinary daily thing that maybe we can take for granted sometimes. And I
Hmm.
have more, but what do you want to add in on this one?
Well, we were talking about color earlier, and it made me think of, well, I told you before we hit record that I typed in my name and beautiful in the search bar on Facebook. And then I looked at posts that I had made where I used the
Mhm.
word beautiful because I was trying to remember what all I may have called beautiful. And so, of course, there were sunset pictures and sunrise pictures that came up, but it made me think back to, this may or may not have anything to do with the podcast, but it made me think of it. So I'm bringing it up. There was a book that we read as a child, and it's called Grandpa Bunny. But in the book, he's called Grandpa Bunny Bunny. And what the story is about, it's a little bit morbid because Grandpa Bunny Bunny dies.
Oh.
Sorry for that spoiler alert there, but it throughout the book, he's Grandpa Bunny Bunny is teaching his grandkids how to paint the leaves. It's kind of like a fable that's how the leaves and the trees and the grass get the color, is by these little bunnies painting. And Grandpa Bunny Bunny tells his grandkids, grand bunnies, that he said, I'm going to go away, but I'm going to do something special. And you'll know it when you see it. And so in the end of the book, and I actually found it online, and I found a place where someone read the book and got tears in my eyes because it took me back to childhood. But in the very end, Grandpa Bunny Bunny does, quote, go away. And it rains one day, and all of the grand bunnies run outside, and they are saying, he did it, he did it. And then it shows this picture of this gorgeous painted sunset. And so they're
Wow.
saying that Grandpa Bunny Bunny went in the sky and painted the sunset. So all my life, anytime there's been
Oh,
a beautiful sunset, my mom and dad would say, look, Grandpa Bunny Bunny painted the
oh,
sky.
that's a
So
tearjerker.
I know, well, two things about that, which is beautiful to me, is sunsets themselves, after a
Hmm.
rainstorm in Texas, especially, you've got a big sky. I know not just in Texas, lots of places do, but when I think about Colorado sky versus Texas sky, you just see more of the sky because we're flat. And there's something about the sky after a storm. It's there's just more colors, the sun sets behind that storm cloud, and it's beautiful. But then the memories that are associated with that, the innocent time of my life growing up, when those little stories just meant things to me, and we have those little memories attached with my parents. And so variety, that's what I thought about. One of the things I thought about
So,
anyway.
do you like sunrise or sunset better?
Mm, Sunrise on the Sea of Galilee would be
Mm.
my favorite place in the whole wide world.
Oh.
But I don't know, probably sunsets, I think.
Mm.
Maybe because I'm not where I live, I don't see sunrise very much because
Okay.
the side of the house, in Denver, the sunrise is on the other side of the houses across the road. I can't see it, but I can see the sunset often. And the same is true for where we are in Dripping Springs. So what
Hmm.
about you? What would you choose?
Probably sunset. I used to say that sunsets were a little bit sad, like sunrise was part of the day where it's a new
Mm-hmm.
day, there's hope.
Yeah.
Sunset's the end of the day, it's kind of sad.
Means you get to go to bed though.
You get to go to bed, that's right. But when you were talking about that, I was also thinking about how it seems like the colder it is, the more beautiful the stars are at night.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed that?
Crispy
And
air.
yes, and on those winter nights, it could be frigidly cold out there, which I don't really care for.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look up, the stars just take your breath away. I
Yeah.
mean, so beautiful.
Why can you say crispy air? Because those two words don't go together, but you know what I'm saying.
That's right.
But that was another thing that I noticed, and maybe it fits in with a variety because we're talking about seasons change. But another one of the little videos that popped up on from my Facebook memories was crunching through fall leaves.
Mm.
And there's just something about,
Mm-hmm.
walking down the street and the leaves are dead, but they're still
Mm-hmm.
pretty because they're golden there. And when you walk, it just crunches under your feet. And the way the aspen leaves flutter, they flutter
Oh,
and
yes.
it's
Mm-hmm.
just beautiful
Quake.
in the fall. So
Yeah.
yeah, seasons change and the variety
Quaking
of,
aspen.
it's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
And even something as trivial as shopping, look at
Hmm.
all the variety we have there. Multiple stores to get groceries or other items or, fun shopping. And then I also thought about we have variety if we want in our schedules
Yeah.
because we kind of choose what our schedule looks like for the most part.
Hmm.
Um, and to be able to change that up sometimes when we need to. And I'm not talking about, certain jobs, but other parts of our day and how we've scheduled out our day. If we need to make a change or we feel like we've gotten in a rut and we want to make a change there, we can do that, and that variety is good. And you know how they always say if you find like your house is just feeling kind of drab, just move the furniture around. You don't
Yeah.
have to go out and buy new furniture. Just reposition everything. And
Hmm.
and a lot of times you'll find out that it kind of perks things up. And
Hmm.
a
I
few months
love
later
moving
you can
furniture. Do you move yours?
I yes, Neil hates it.
Yeah.
Neil, because usually I'm like, I was just wondering. And he goes, oh no. Because we'll move things around and then I'll think, actually, I don't like that there.
Yeah.
Let's, we have to
Hmm.
go through a lot of that. But
Yeah. I love
yeah,
moving furniture.
I do too. But I like variety anyway. I like to
Yeah.
change things up. And I think Neil would rather things stay the same.
Yeah. John will walk in after I rearrange because usually I do it when he's not there
Mhm.
because I know he's going to roll his eyes a little bit and he'll walk in the door and he'll just stop and he'll look around. And used to, he would kind of roll his eyes at me, but now he's learned to say, I like it. He'll
Oh,
say, I
good
like it.
husband.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does. And
Hmm.
usually he does like it. And I don't know, it gives you good opportunity to clean
Hmm.
and vacuum underneath the furniture. So yeah, I love moving
Hmm.
furniture.
One time we were on a mission trip and my mom and my sister were at my house with the boys. And when I got back, they had repositioned my entire living room and without telling me.
I don't know that I
But
would do that for someone else.
yeah, well, I wouldn't for anybody aside from my sister,
Yeah.
Well, actually, I wouldn't because I'm not good at that and she is, but
Hmm.
I loved it. And the way they put everything when I walked in, I thought I never in a million years would
Yeah.
have thought of doing that, but it looked so good and it just
Hmm.
completely changed the feel of the place. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, nurturing something, variety. The third category was control. And I wanted to include this one
But the
because
illusion of control.
well, yes. But there are so many things that honestly, they just are out of our control.
Hmm.
What's going on in the world, what happens in life, things that come into our life that we didn't ask for, things that mess up that schedule that
Hmm.
we thought we had planned out, that stuff happens. But there are still things every single day that we do have control over. And that's a beautiful thing. And so I'm gonna start out with the most trivial one, and I put the thermostat.
Do you really get to control that?
I
Because I
don't.
don't.
I don't. But there are people that live in this house that do.
Uh-huh.
I don't have control over the one at the church building either. I wish I did. But you get my point.
I've always thought that we
In
should
my
have,
car,
yeah, there you get one area. But don't you
my
think we should
area.
have church snuggies? Remember snuggies?
No, they'll go to sleep during the sermon.
Well, but if it's 22 degrees in the church building, so
Hmm.
you could have a snuggie that looks like a dress.
Hmm.
All the
Yes.
way down to your feet, you can look like you're wearing hose and heels. And
Listen, why don't you work on that and make it a new side hustle?
okay. All right, I'll get
Okay.
right to work on that.
All
Sorry.
right. All right. Let's skip the thermostat one. That one didn't go
Okay.
over well. But here's one. I can control the mood in my home
Hmm.
and my own attitude.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing because um, sometimes I can wake up on the wrong side of the bed. I didn't get a good enough sleep, whatever it might be. There's things going on in my home that are making it unpleasant or
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable, but I still can control my mood, which will affect everybody else's mood in the home. I still can control my own attitude and how I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to handle that or choose to look at the rest of the day. And even when there aren't things going on, we make that choice every single morning when we get up. We get to choose that. How we're going to look at the rest of the day. Is it going to be a joyful day? Am I going to be pleasant? You know, or am I going to be hung up on every inconvenience and grumble about it?
Yeah.
That's beautiful that we get to have that kind of control.
I think it's funny, a little bit funny to me that you chose control as one of the beautiful things, because you said before that that's something you struggle with when you don't, when
Mm-hmm.
things are not in your control. So when you
Mm-hmm.
can somewhat control, so you're looking for the beauty and the ability to be able to control
Yes.
small things,
Yes.
and then to learn to let go of those other things that you can't have control of.
Yeah, it's a reminder for me because that is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a bit of a control freak in some areas. In some other areas, I don't care. I'm happy to put that completely in somebody else's control, but in a lot of ways. And when something comes along that, changes my plan for the day or what I had in
Yeah.
mind for something,
Mm-hmm.
or, there are things going on that I don't care for, but I don't have any control over it. That's sometimes can be hard for me to deal with. And I need to remind myself there are still so many things that I do have control over. And one of them is my response to all the things that I don't have control
Mm-hmm.
over.
Yeah.
Um, so response to others,
Yeah.
how they act, their behavior, um, their bad attitude or whatever it might be, I get to control my response to
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't have to get sucked in. And that's a beautiful thing. We may not
That's
remember that all the time.
Yeah, that's something that John has had to teach me over the years. Is there was one man in particular, and this was Jordan was a baby, so 30 some odd years ago, who just he would needle me and pick, and he
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a I loved him. I had to, but wasn't anybody related to me, so no one has to
Mm-hmm.
wonder about that. But he always put me in a bad mood because there was something about him that he just kind of treated John with a little bit of disdain, even though he was one of those that would say, I'm just kidding," and kind of just picking at me and picking at other people, and again would just, "I'm just kidding, don't take it so seriously," and it just put me in the worst mood. And we'd leave the church building, and I would be, and John would say, "Well, you can't control what he says, but you can refuse to let him have control of you." And it really took me, it didn't click for a long time, but when I finally realized that I can choose whether or not to give him control of my mood, and really I was letting him control me when he did or said things, why do
Mm-hmm.
I give over myself to people that make me angry or irritate
Yeah.
me or whatever? So it's still kind of hard to do sometimes, but
Yeah.
and now I love I always loved this man, but I know him, it's 30 some odd years later, and he softened, and I
Mm-hmm.
have realized that I don't have to, he doesn't needle quite so much. I'm more mature in my response to him, and I love him dearly. So anyway, you're right about that control. The thing that I thought of that kind of fit in with this, and it's going to sound a little bit strange, but I thought about how we can control memories, and that's going to sound funny because once they're already made, you might not be able to control them. But I think we have to be thinking ahead about the kind of memories that we're creating, and we do have control over that, because I don't know. There's just, like I was talking about, the Grandpa Bunny. That's a memory that my parents created for me in a good childhood, and they allowed me to have that innocent time of life when there was nothing that I had to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And I've thought about that a number of times, how we can choose to live the kind of life that gives us good memories to look back on and things to smile about and things to be proud of, and knowing a memory that we know that we've honored God with the way that we've lived our lives. So if we don't do that along the way, then we're going to look back with regrets and bad memories. So that may sound like kind of a strange thing to say that we have control over. But, sometimes do you, when you see pictures of your boys as small children, does it kind of twist your heart a little bit, or does it make you smile?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, me too. In fact, sometimes when I get notifications of even my grandkids, there's a little app called Tiny Beans, and Aaron used to always upload pictures of the kids when they were, especially Jackson and Emmy, when they were little bitty. And sometimes I just don't want to look at them because I know that it's going to make my throat close up because they're already growing and it's happy. I love seeing pictures of them, but it just, if I don't feel like crying over how fast time is going, then I don't want to look at them. So that's kind of a weird thing to say when we're talking about the beauty of life and things that I don't want to look at, but I'm just warped like that.
There was a quote, one of the quotes that I like, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who said it, but it was, choose to live a joyful life. And then one day when you're older and you look back, you get to enjoy it all over again.
Yeah.
And
that's great. Perfect.
Memories in and of themselves are another one of those beauty in the ordinary kind of things. We all have, I'm sure, painful memories, but we also, even in painful moments now, can look back and recall special moments, beautiful things, things in our past that we have lodged away because God gave us the ability to have memories.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Even those little golden books that when I was looking for that Grandpa Bunny story, and I had Googled through it. And so I'm looking at the covers of all these little golden books, and it just makes me smile because of a happy childhood. And so memories. And I hope and pray that my boys look back on their childhood too with fondness.
Oh, I know they do. I know they do. Okay, so the next one is beauty in the ordinary and the million little things. And these are just all those things. And we don't, obviously we're not going to camp out on each one of them because it'll take too long. But there are so many little things that are just beautiful in an ordinary life. And I thought of things like candles and fireplaces, music, books, throw blankets, fuzzy socks, citrus. I love everything about citrus, the way it smells, tastes, everything. And I really could have gone down that food trail for a long time, but tried really hard not to.
Immediately think chocolate.
I know. And the other food one I included was like hot drinks, coffee, tea, hot chocolate, those kinds of things. And herbs, picnics, hobbies. Think about some of those hobbies that we may have enjoyed through the years, playing the clarinet or the piano, or some people knit or do macrame or watercolor or gardening or baking. All these things are just enjoyable that we get to do with our hands. Hiking, things in nature like the woods, the forests, the streams, lakes, oceans, clean water. Here's one: mattresses and pillows.
What?
Like a good bed mattress and a really good pillow. Quilts, self-care, your morning or evening routine of brushing your teeth and washing your face and putting on whatever you do, you can make that, like just something that's a little bit a special time for you. And I thought also along those lines, doing something for others and the little things, like writing a letter. It's just a small, ordinary thing, but there's such beauty in that when you're writing a letter to somebody else, or baking someone cookies, hugging a widow, speaking words of encouragement. And in the day-to-day, just keeping your home. Everybody lives somewhere and everybody gets to keep their home, and just the satisfaction and purpose found in that is a beautiful thing. Yeah. So that's my list of beauty in all the little things.
One of the things that I thought of was, it's also a memory, but it can still be a current thing, is that very first and maybe this is a weird thing about my family, but the first time you get to go outside barefoot in the spring. And
Mm.
my mom she would wait until the grass was warmer. Mom, I know you listen to this podcast, but really, we didn't have to wait until the grass was warm before we could go outside barefoot. But she would make us wait. And then when she deemed that it was warm enough, then we would get to go outside barefoot. And this was in an area where we didn't have stickers like I've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, the smell of freshly mowed grass
Oh, that's a good
in the
one.
summertime is the
Yes.
best ever.
Yes.
And Saturday evenings, I find myself going back to memories, I guess, of things that were happy. But Saturday evenings in my home, is that me or you? I hear a
No, I
beeping.
don't. It's you.
I should quit saying things like that because nobody can hear them but me, and people are going to start thinking I'm hearing things. Anyway, Saturday evenings would be homemade ice cream. This is summertime. Homemade ice cream, the smell of freshly mown grass in the neighborhood. I can remember between our house and the house next door, there was a strawberry patch. Just standing out there with my bare feet in the grass. Sometimes it would involve Hee Haw, because that was a Saturday night thing, and Lawrence Welk.
Lawrence
These are
Welk,
just
yeah.
simple things that I remember that I love. But thinking more currently, just creating and making things, kind of like what you were talking about. But making pasta just makes me happy. Eating pasta makes me happier, but creating that, making good tasting food, a new pedicure that kind of maybe shows a little bit of shallowness on my part, but I love a new pedicure, having that time sitting in the chair and having a fresh pedicure, a freshly baked roll, a yeast roll is one of my favorite things. You said writing a letter, but I love receiving letters. Getting mail.
Real mail.
Yes, I love getting mail. And then I thought, this is maybe not a small thing, and it may be kind of a weird thing to put here, but I was thinking about song words, the words of songs, and they're not necessarily simple, but sometimes we just gloss over them. If you're anything like me, sometimes you just sing because you memorize it. And some days, don't you just find yourself all of a sudden being struck by the words of a song?
Yes.
And it just, it touches you in the heart. And one of those is the song, Be Still My Soul.
Oh, I love that song.
And I just thought I would read those words because sometimes it's good to just read them. But the song says, Be still my soul, the Lord is on your side. Bear patiently the cross of grief or pain. Leave to thy God to order and provide. In every change he faithful will remain. Be still my soul, thy best, thy heavenly friend, through thorny ways leads to a joyful end. Be still my soul, the hour is hastening on, when we shall be forever with the Lord. When disappointment, grief, and fear are gone, sorrow forgot, love's purest joys restored. Be still my soul, when change and tears are past. All safe and blessed we shall meet at last. This is my favorite refrain. Be still my soul. The waves and wind still know his voice who ruled them while he dwelt below. And it's just such a great reminder that even something like an ocean or a sea or a storm still recognizes the power and the authority of God. So that's not a small thing. I should have saved that for the big things because it's a big thing.
We do have a big list, but amen to that. I love that song. Those words are beautiful.
Yeah.
So we'll just go on into the big things.
Okay.
So we're talking about beauty in the ordinary, but these are just daily things that are always there for the Christian every day. And the first one I came up with was love. God's love for others, love from others, and what a gift. What a gift. And especially his demonstration of love toward all of us and showing us what that is. And his assurance that he always loves us. And I was thinking that even at times, if you feel unloved, and none of us are ever unloved, but sometimes we might feel that way. there is always, always somebody else to love.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe in those seasons of loneliness or when you feel like nobody really understands you and so it makes you feel lonely, you can look around and see that there is somebody that I can love on, I can reach out to and show love to. And that's a beautiful thing. And of course, prayer, salvation, forgiveness, family, babies, marriage, the word, our church family, and friends. All
Mm.
those big, beautiful gifts from God we have every day.
Yeah.
Every day, and they're beautiful things, even in the midst of everything that's going on. And sometimes things are going on personally that, whatever's weighing on your heart when you're praying at night, you lay your pillow down and it's keeping you awake at night. Um, it's okay, I think, to still appreciate and look for the beauty in all the things around us. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to feel like we can't find joy. We can't look to be happy in the goodness of God. I don't think we have to feel bad because bad things are happening. It's okay to acknowledge all the good things and to thank God for them and to know that the best is yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's all these beautiful things here in the ordinary, can you even imagine
Yeah.
what eternity is going to be like in a created heaven just for us? The
Mm-hmm.
God, the God that created all of the beauty around us created something that John had a hard time putting into words for us, the
Mm-hmm.
inspired writer of Revelation, and so what are your in the big things? I know I covered probably all of them, but
Yeah. Yeah. We could just close it out there.
yeah.
No, that, well, singing,
Mm-hmm.
it has been on my mind. I just read the words of that song, but thinking about what we do every night, and I haven't been able to be there every night, but here at PTP, we do the singing in the atrium. Excuse me. And it's just a big round room, and it looks really big until you pack a bunch of people in there. And then, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably breaking a fire code somewhere, but so the ceiling is vaulted. But Andy Baker he's just always been my favorite song leader. He just is, because he has a beautiful voice, first of all, but he leads really well. He always has his hands in the air where you can see him. A lot of times a song leader, I digress a little bit, sorry, but you can see where he's leading. And he has this pleasant look on his face. He's smiling when he's leading singing. And so it enhances the song leading. But in the atrium, it just, you really do feel like we're singing songs to one another and encouraging one another, because we're in a big circle and we can see each other's faces, unless you're my height, when you can see the person in front of you. But it's just, there's so many recordings you can see on social media right now from the atrium singings, and I have some of my own, but there's just nothing like it. So many times I can't sing at all because I'm just so choked up.
It just gives you chills.
Yeah, it does. And so I just think that is one of the hugest things that God gave us here in this life, that gives us a taste of what heaven's going to be like, because it brings so many emotions out, and it brings out the love that we have for one another and the love that we have for God. And the sound of blending voices is just something that's so beautiful. And he didn't have to do that, and that's something that I think is unique too to members of the churches of Christ, because we sing a cappella and we are able to hear each other's voices. And God talks about that we're to sing to one another psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, making music in our hearts. And so that is just one of my, I mean, that's, other than love, I think that's the biggest one to me. And then there was another one that I pulled up a memory. John had created a video when we went to Singapore and Malaysia, and back in 2018. And I know I've mentioned it before, but when I pulled that video up and I pushed play, I immediately got these big old tears in my eyes, because it brought back the memories of the feelings that I had when I was there. And the very opening part of the video, And I remember John always does these things that I think this is not going to work out. We can't pull this off, but he always pushes through and it always works out. So
Mm.
this was before worship. The last Sunday that we were there, he asked if a few of the members would be on the outside of the church building, and then he was going to video walking in, and everyone was seated already. And in this particular congregation, I think it's an old house because it's put together like a house, and their auditorium is like a living room. But then there's a room off to the left that was maybe a bedroom, but they've taken the walls down and put glass there so you can see. So they still have a wall, but it's a glass wall. And the room is filled all the way around. So at the beginning of the video, he put music, and the song is Here in This Place.
Mm.
And even just saying that just makes me choke up. But he walks up the steps, and the beautiful people standing on the steps are smiling and welcoming him in. And they open the door, and John carries the camera. He walks in and he pans to the left, and everyone sitting over there is waving and smiling. And then he pans across, and everyone's just waving and smiling. And I just remember how I felt there and how I felt loved. And it was on the other side of the world, but they were fellow Christians. And, I think I've talked before about how I was afraid to make that trip because it was so far, but it was one of the biggest blessings of my life because the memories associated and the people that we share that common love with. And they have different backgrounds, they have different sounding names, different skin, but they are children of God and they belong to Him just like I do. And it just taught me so many lessons about love and about commonality. And I can't even put into words, but it was a beautiful thing. And that to me, I can't even explain why it's so beautiful, but it is.
It
So,
is. And I love how there's songs for all of us that create those types of memories, even in worship. Have you ever just sat there and the song leader gets up there and says, our next song is going to be, and as soon as he calls it out, you think, oh,
there goes my
this
makeup.
this song makes me think of my grandpa's funeral, or this song
Yeah.
reminds me of the first Sunday I brought my first child to worship, or,
Uh-huh.
so many
Mm-hmm.
special memories attached to song. And God knew that.
Yeah.
Songs are praise to Him, but He knew that they would impact us in such a powerful way.
Mm-hmm.
That song that you mentioned, Here in This Place, has special meaning to me too because of John also. Um, that group trip that we took in
Mm-hmm.
2018 to Israel, he put together a video of
Yeah.
snapshots from the trip, and that was the song that's in the
Mm-hmm.
background. So even you just saying those words, I was instantly transported back to that remarkable trip and
Yeah.
all the special moments we had together,
Mm-hmm.
being there, singing together, enjoying it together. And
Mm-hmm.
so definitely a beautiful thing. And we get to experience that in eternity also,
Yeah.
the singing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We know that's one of those things that we get to enjoy there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was thinking that to close out this conversation, it'd be good to mention we're talking about the beauty in the ordinary that's just there. God's put it in our lives, and if we take a moment to look, but you mentioned creating memories intentionally, and I kind
Mm-hmm.
of want to end it out with this idea of creating beauty, especially if you're in a season or a difficult time when it's hard for you to think about or even see beauty. We can always create beauty and put more of that in our lives. And I thought about just the little thing and the ordinary things, um, there's nothing wrong with not setting a table, but maybe every now and then set the table and
Mm-hmm.
make dinner for no reason special for your family. And light a candle when you're reading your Bible or, getting ready for bed. I thought about writing a poem. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be a poet, but just think about what's on your heart and what's important to you and sit down and write it out and create that beauty. Um, wear your favorite color. Make up a song or a ditty for your child or grandchild. How fun would that be?
Mm-hmm.
And then create a moment of joy for someone else. You can just say, who do I want to bring joy to, and how can I do that in some small way? And that's creating beauty. That's
Mhm.
that's us contributing and helping others see um, the good things that come from God. So, any
Hmm.
more thoughts on this before we end out the podcast with something different?
No, I think that's the perfect ending. Create
Okay.
beauty. You do that for
Mhm.
me all the time.
Well, and friendship is one of those beautiful things. And
Hmm.
I would say that we have no ordinary friendship,
Hmm.
and I'm thankful for it.
Me too.
Okay, so we've done random questions at the end of the podcast. We've done I see good people kind of a thing at the end of the podcast. Now we're going to start something else that's new. And I thought it'd be fun to share something good. Um, Not just like a good thing, like one of these things that we've been talking about, but something good that listeners can also maybe look into themselves or try out or whatever. We just want to we just want to share something that we enjoy or find useful or think was a really good thing. And hey, you might enjoy that too. And in the upcoming episodes, I don't know how long we'll do this, but there might be things that are items or products or something material. So this will be a good time to again remind we're
Yeah.
not sponsored by anything. We're not making money off of anything. And mine's not even a thing like that this time.
Yeah.
But if it ever does, we're not pushing products for a reason. We're just sharing good things, things that we like, and we think you might enjoy them too. So that's how we're going to start ending out our podcast so that you can listen into the end and wait for us to share something good with you.
Yeah.
So would you like to go first?
Well, mine is a thing, and it
Okay.
might be considered a shameless plug or promotion, but not for me, but it is for my son. My oldest son, Jordan, is a photographer, and there's lots of photographers out there, and we all have access now, even more than we ever have, to good photography because even our phones that we carry around have really good cameras on them.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got an eye, and I realize I'm biased, but he really does. He's won awards. In fact, I'm looking at his website going across my iPad right now. One of them that he was second place in a national contest for designing the National Parks Pass card that
Mm-hmm.
when you go in the national park, you don't have to buy a pass. You can buy a day pass, but if you get a yearly pass, they'll it looks like a credit card. So every year there's a contest to put an image on there, and one of his was in second place, and his was much better than the one that
Wow.
won. I don't know why he didn't
Of
win.
course.
Anyway, he does nature photography. He doesn't do people. He prefers not to do people photography, but he has a website. It's called J Moore Outdoor Photography, jmooreoutdoor.com, and I'll link it next week. But he has a lot of national parks. He has landscapes, scenic Texas, U.S. national parks, wildlife, panoramics. But I think I've shown pictures of my office before, and I have one of his images in my office. It's printed on a canvas of a place. It's actually where Micah and Courtney got engaged. It's Bear Lake or Dream Lake, Bear Lake, which is the one that you can walk around up in the park. I think it's Bear Lake. But when you go there in the wintertime, it's frozen solid and you can walk across it. We did that with Lance and Robin Riddick this year. But then in the spring, fall, summer, it's just, I think it's about 9,000 feet in elevation up there. But it's a relatively small lake and there's a path that you can walk around it. But in the fall, it's just breathtaking with the aspens, and it's just one of my favorite places. But I have one of his images there in my office. And then at home, we have an image that he took of the Grand Canyon with snow in it. And it looks like a painting. He just has an eye. And again, I know that I probably sound biased, but he really does. He has an Etsy store now, but I'll share the links next week to J Moore Outdoor Photography. And you can see, I won't try to show them to you on the screen here because it won't come across, but he has some beautiful images, and I'll share it next week.
Mm-hmm. He definitely does have an eye. His photography is gorgeous.
This
You've
is the
given
very
us
I will
Okay.
show you this one. Can you see that one?
Oh man,
That's the
that
one
is
that I have on my wall
stunning.
at home. You don't see
Wow.
snow in the Grand Canyon very often, but
Mhm.
they happen to be there. And we had that printed on a canvas, and it is just, it's beautiful. And I would love to have many, many of them all over the place.
Yeah,
So,
I think the sign of good photography or artwork is for it to make you feel something,
hmm
powerful. And his photography really does. You've given us a couple of his calendars through the years, and
hmm
I always enjoyed that. I always look forward to the end of the month,
Yeah.
because I don't
What's
look at, I
next?
don't allow myself to look ahead. It's like a little treat at the end of the month. Can't wait to flip it and see the next month.
That control that you have.
Whale. All
Hmm
right. Good one. Okay. So the thing I want to share is we went to the Connect conference in Nashville at Cree Hall last month, and I got to hear Lori Boyd speak on Saturday morning, and she was
hmm
doing the study of Hebrews 4:12, which has always been one of my favorite verses anyway. The word of God is living and powerful and sharper
hmm
than any two-edged sword. And her lesson was incredible. And I mean incredible. And that's just one of those verses that you think you are pretty familiar with.
Yeah.
And you're, oh, Hebrews 4:12. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me take my notes here. But
Mm.
she, she brought up so much rich stuff that I will never look at that verse the same again. And she
Mm.
went back into Old Testament history and just exposed it in such a way that really brought out the power and the meaning of that verse. And it
hmm
was so, so good. And so I think it would be great to share the link to that lesson so that everybody can hear it. And so I was looking it up so that I could share it and discovered that I don't think they actually caught that lesson.
Oh no.
And I'm waiting to hear back. I sent a message. I went to the Connect conference page and I sent a message to them. Apparently, it was a two-part lesson, and she did the first part on Hebrews 4:12 on Friday, but we weren't there Friday, and I didn't hear it. But that one is there. You can find it on YouTube, but I'll share the link to that. And then the second part, which is the part I heard, was on Saturday, but I can't find that one. And so anyway, I've sent a message to him and they said they're going to check with the AV guys and get back with me. So hopefully that was in fact recorded, because I'm telling you, I went up to her afterwards and said, I was going to come up to you and say, great lesson on Hebrews 4:12, but I think I want to say that's one of the best lessons I've ever heard. I mean, it was
Wow.
that good.
Yeah.
It was that good. So I want everybody to be able to listen in, and that's what I want to be able to share is the link to that so everybody
I'm
can. But
excited. She's
yeah.
coming to Bear Valley lectures. She's going to speak twice, but she's also coming a little bit early to talk to the Bear Valley women,
Oh, good.
school women on Wednesday night
Mhm.
before lectures start on Thursday. So,
She always does
I've,
a great job because she's a real student of the word.
hmm
She puts in the hours of study and you can tell it comes across in a way
hmm
that's understandable and practical.
yeah.
But this lesson in particular,
Well, I hope that they caught it. And if not,
visible.
I'll look forward to Friday's lesson because
Yeah.
I'm sure that's amazing as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, that's maybe a good way to invite everyone to think about coming to Bear Valley lectures. That's coming up September. I want to say 17th through 19th. I should have double checked before I opened my mouth, but it's the third weekend, right? Third weekend in September.
It's usually
And
around the early 20s or something.
yeah, I want to say it's the 17th through 19th. I will
Okay.
link those next week too,
Mhm.
but it's always a good period of study. We have a whole ladies section. We're going to have Lori Boyd. We're going to have Tracy Sproul. Tiffany Gaines is going to come speak to us. Shauna Wyant is a member there at Bear Valley. She's going to give us a lesson. And I'm going to feel terrible because I think I'm leaving one off, but I'll post that schedule in the group next week. That's because I'm terrible about pulling things out of thin air, and my brain is pretty much dead
You
now
you have
after.
you have PTP brain.
I do, yeah, which is
Yeah.
it's a good brain, but it's a fried brain right now.
Well, and that's the perfect time of year to be in Colorado.
hmm
I mean, it's beautiful that time. So go out there just for that.
Yeah, yeah,
You
you
get
could
the lectureship and that.
come up a day or two early and go
Mm-hmm.
up in the national park at Rocky Mountain National Park and see the aspens starting to change, and usually the temperature is gorgeous. So yeah, we'd love to
Yes.
have everybody.
Yeah. Good. All right. I have enjoyed this so much. Thanks for talking about beautiful things with me, and enjoy the rest of your time at PTP. Hope you guys have a safe trip. Are you heading back home tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Flying back
have
to
a
Denver.
safe trip. Be praying for you.
Okay.
All right. Love you so much.
Love you too.
Bye.
Till next time.
Keep looking up. I forgot.
Almost forgot.
I almost
Episode
forgot.
31.